Should the Miami Dolphins move off of quarterback Tua Tagovailoa? This is a very hot button issue amongst Dolphins fans, and I think it's a bit silly, but I'm here to break it all down. Now, obviously, I have a Tua Tagovailoa canvas above me. I am a big fan of Tua, but I'm going to try and be as unbiased as possible in my explanation of the next steps for the Dolphins organization and the quarterback that they just paid Tua Tagovailoa. So first and foremost, there's the narrative that Tua is not good enough. He can't beat good teams. I want to just paint a clear picture, and I want to challenge fans to be real with themselves. I think you need to be able to separate performance and outcome. Has Tua been responsible for some of these losses against good teams? Yes. Has he also not been the problem in these losses against good teams? Also, yes. You have to be able to analyze each game on its own merit. For example, this Texans game, Tua absolutely was responsible for why we lost this game. He played very poorly, and we lost the football game because our offense couldn't get anything moving. Very fair to put the blame on Tua for this game. And also props to the Texans. I think they had a brilliant defensive game plan, and we didn't adjust, and they took advantage of how we play offense. So once again, Tua was responsible for this loss. But who's the last good team that the Dolphins played that you'd consider good? Green Bay Packers, absolutely. Tua was 37 of 46, 365 yards, 2 touchdowns. Now, once again, was Tua perfect? No. He missed 2 throws, pretty critical throws in the second quarter. But aside from that, was pretty money. As that stat line dictates, he was pretty good. And people want to say it was garbage time. No, the Packers were still trying to win that football game, put up points, and get stops. And Tua was able to move the ball pretty effectively. But guess what? The Dolphins still lost 30-17. They were a touchdown at the 1-yard line away from making a legitimate game. So I think Tua played pretty well against a good Packers defense. The game, next game before that, but people don't want to consider, against the Los Angeles Rams, Tua won against the Rams, but they weren't above 500 at that time, so they don't count as a good team in most people's eyes. That's why I think it's imperative to hold everything on their own merit. The Dolphins beat a good Rams team, but it doesn't count apparently. Buffalo, that is as close to a perfect quarterback performance as you can get, and guess what? We still lost the football game. Is that Tua's fault? According to a lot of people, it is. So I think, once again, it's important to separate the good and the bad. Yes, has Tua been perfect? Absolutely not. He's been responsible for some of these losses. This first Buffalo game, on Tua. The Houston game, on Tua. Aside from that, I think Tua's played damn near elite quarterback play outside of 2 football games this entire season. Would you like to see more consistency and less low games like that? Absolutely. But I think putting everything on one individual is just so silly. The Dolphins have issues. Tua is not perfect, but he's shown the ability to improve year after year. He's played at a very high level of quarterback majority of this season. So I understand the frustration, but I just think it's so silly. Let's be real. You can separate when he is good and responsible for losses. Let's be critical thinkers and grade everything on its own merit. He did not play good against the Texans. He's had 2 bad games all season, has been basically elite outside of that. He's beaten a good team, but people don't want to consider the Rams a good team. I understand the frustration from the fan base. I think it's unfortunately, I wish it was as simple as it was just the quarterback, but it goes deeper in my opinion. It starts with the offensive side of the ball and the lack of consistency from head coach Mike McDaniel, but that's something for another day. But what should the Dolphins do with Tua Tagovailoa? And I think it's extremely clear. I think Tua has played well enough to show you that he's worthy of spending more time with. You obviously dish out a massive contract that you don't have an out in until 2026, which is why I think you continue to build upon Mike McDaniel and Tua Tagovailoa for another year in 2025. And after that season, you will have a lot more clarity as well, because I think we're at a clear point where the Dolphins need to pivot in terms of their schematic plan, because it's not good enough. So you give Mike McDaniel another year to fully try to adapt. And after that year, if the Dolphins underperform again, by all means, fire Mike McDaniel. You can hire a new head coach that can make a decision on Tua. If you let go of Tua in 2025, you'll still have a massive dead cap hit, or you can let Tua ride with that new head coach for another season, and then he has an out in his contract in 2026 where the head coach can be like, all right, I'm done. I want to get my own quarterback. That's why I think it just makes more sense. Let's wait another year with McDaniel and Tua, and then you have an out in 2026. I think there's just an incredible rush on Tua. Just so much inconsistency among the fan base between. And once again, I understand why there is, because of the frustration. But let's just try and critically think as much as possible analyze things for what they are and not lump everything into one big ball that doesn't make sense because you're trying to prove your point. So that is my take on the approach the Miami Dolphins should take with Tua Tagovailoa and Mike McDaniel, although the Mike McDaniel video might be its own separate thing. So comment your thoughts down below on this topic. Do you agree with me? Because I mean, I think that's logically what makes the most sense between financially, the player that Tua Tagovailoa is. Like, there's also just a crazy narrative around quarterback play where every quarterback needs to be Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen. It's just not the case. I mean, I think Tua Tagovailoa is extremely close as a player to Drew Brees, and Drew Brees was plenty good enough to win a Super Bowl and be at the top of the league year in, year out. And I think Tua Tagovailoa is that kind of dude. So Tua is a guy you can build around. Has he been perfect? No. Has he been elite sometimes and still lost? Yes. So once again, you have to separate their performances and analyze what went wrong, why it went wrong, and where you need to see improvement. And I think Tua will take care of that because he's that kind of dude. So once again, comment your thoughts down below on this hot button issue. I appreciate all the Dolphins fans. Hopefully we can finally get this turned around next year, but it feels like that's the same MO every single offseason. But appreciate everybody. Like and subscribe to help the channel grow. And until next time, fins up.